Hey everybody, it's Jim here, and it has officially been 3 years since I have had any alcohol in my life. And I'm making this video because I would like to give any people who are in a situation like I was some advice, some things to look out for in case you do decide to take the path that I have chosen, as well as, some reality of the situation, because there are some things that you might think will change or potentially change that may not, and that this is a continually learning process and it does not necessarily always get easier and easier. To begin with, when I decided I was going to get sober, it wasn't so much of a decision as it was I landed in the hospital. And the doctors told me pretty much straight up, you need to quit. You need to quit now. I've been really bad stomach issues and really bad anxiety issues. This was right at the peak of the pandemic that was going on, and I was not dealing with it well. And what do we do when we're addicts and we don't know how to deal with something? We try and drink it off. You wake up, you feel like shit. So what do? You try and drink it off again to get rid of that feeling, get back to equilibrium, and there lies the biggest problem with it. However, I did end up following that advice and immersing myself in a few things to help myself get through that initial process. And it was definitely a transition. That's the best way that I can say it. And I think that there was good and bad of coming out of it at the time that I did. It was good because I wasn't immediately forced back into situations like playing guitar and performing and things of that nature, or driving anywhere, especially in Southern California. We pretty much stayed very close to home all the time. So I developed this kind of easy lifestyle, so to speak, where there wasn't much adversity or situations that were going to make me feel anxious. Putting that into perspective for people right now, if you do quit and you want to make that decision to better yourself, one piece of advice I would give you is definitely take some time to get used to what it's like to operate day to day without alcohol, because it is not easy, especially if you're somebody who suffers from social anxiety or performance anxiety, whether it's on a stage or, just even going to work. That can be really stressful for some people. The fact that they need to have a drink before they get to work and they need a drink at lunch, and then when they're done, they're hitting the bar for the same thing. Believe me, I've been there for all of that. The more that you can get used to getting back into a regular life routine, the easier it's going to be. And the faster that you do that, more importantly, the better. Because if you ignore that and then you stay in your little bubble, what can happen is you can make the problem exponentially worse and actually increase your odds of potentially relapsing, which is something that I've found myself struggling with. I have not, but it's something that, when the stress does come in and I'm put in situations that I didn't retrain my mind specifically to be able to tolerate and to deal with, my first thought is either escape the situation entirely or find somewhere to get a drink. Even though I don't drink anymore, it still just stays with you. It's one of those things. You just have to battle it at the time. The second piece of advice that I would give you all is, if you are around people who are enablers, they might be the greatest people in the whole world outside of that one thing, but you really, really need to reevaluate the relationships that you do have if you want to be able to remain sober. At first, it might not be a big deal, or at first it might be a really, 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 really agitating thing for you to see your friends or your family or your loved ones still enjoying that behavior and being able to enjoy it responsibly, and maybe feeling like you can't really do the things that you used to do anymore, go and participate in events like going to bars or stuff like that, or even performing at bars because you don't want to be in that environment. And it can kind of trickle down to home or trickle down to when you do meet up with your friends. It's kind of like, oh, well, what are we going to talk about? They might feel like they're on eggshells around you because, they don't want to set you off and put you down into a rabbit hole of going back and, pounding beers or vodka or whatever it was that you drank. And it's a delicate thing, but when it comes to taking care of yourself, that's the first thing that you have to realize here. You're doing this for yourself. You have to put yourself first. And unfortunately, if somebody is not respecting your wishes, it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. And it doesn't mean that, you can eventually have some sort of friendship with them. But in order to, maintain the sobriety that you're fighting to keep, you gotta do your best to try and surround yourself with people that are more like-minded like you. They don't necessarily need to be in recovery or totally sober or anything like that, but people that are not going to potentially tempt you or, force you into going over the edge via peer pressure or social situations like that. The last thing I want to say is the great improvement to your lives that it will have, but the other things that will not change. The first is, I feel so much better. I look so much better health-wise. I was big. I was bloated. I had a huge gut. It was a struggle for me to do a lot of things. And looking back at pictures of myself, I was in much worse shape than I'd really realized. And you don't realize it until you're after the fact. When you look back on it, you say, how did I not see just what kind of situation I had put myself in, both mentally and physically? And it's just, you grow numb to it because you grow into the routine and all that. But on the other side of it, my relationships, especially the most important ones to me with my close family and to my daughter, I've become such a better father. Not that I would ever consider myself a bad father, but I'm definitely miles above what I was as far as my willingness to want to participate in everything, my willingness to be there all the time, to really fully engage. Whereas sometimes when I was drinking, it's just like I had to have a beer with me, or, I had to have a drink before we'd go, and even just do stupid little things like play. And I know that sounds crazy to say that, and it's not stupid, but it's just part of being an addict. You have to have this to do this and have that feeling, and it's not a good thing at all. But overall, it is worth it in the long run to do that, because you will see great improvements in yourself if you stick to it. However, not to leave this on a downer, I'll try and find a positive note to end this on. One other thing that you have to remember is it is a constant struggle. There are going to be points in your life where things are going to seem really easy, and you're going to be like, this has been the easiest no-brainer decision of my entire life to get over this kind of addiction and to do all of this. And you might be socially in a great place or in a relationship with a great person and things are going great. But when adversity does hit, and it will hit, it's how you cope with it, because no matter how long the situation has been that you are sober now, there's going to be a part of your brain, if you're truly an addict, that is going to default back to that. And coping with that without going back into those habits is going to be something that you're going to have to learn how to fight against. So, where are we now? What was the point of this video? My point was just to, give you guys some perspective on what my experience has been like. And I know a lot of people, it's all different situations, and there's all sorts of different addictions out there. There are people that are addicted to coffee, to cigarettes, to alcohol, to harder drugs and things like that. And they're all varying as far as the withdrawal and, the recovery period. But when it comes to alcohol, especially because it's so socially acceptable, and if you're a musician or a creative person in general, it's almost normal for people to be like, oh, that guy's going to have a drink. Oh, he's going to live at the bar after the show. He's going to throw back shots with everybody and enjoy it and have a good time, because that's part of what it was, at least for me, for a long, long time, many decades of playing guitar. I know I look young, but I'm really knocking on the door of 40 closer than I would like to admit to. But you can do it. That's the thing I want to leave you with. You can do it. If you decide you want to do it, you can do it, but nobody can force you to do it. And if you're watching this and somebody who does not have this problem, but you know somebody that does, you can't convince someone to do it. They have to really make that conscious choice on their own. But if you are at that point, just know there is another side to it. It doesn't get super easy. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, but it's absolutely worth it. So, thank you for watching this video. I hope you're all doing well. And if you're struggling with any sort of addiction or anything, you can always, leave me a comment, reach out in an email and stuff like that. I am by no means qualified to talk about any of this stuff. But if you just need somebody and you feel like you don't have anybody to bounce ideas or just stuff off of, just shoot me a message and we can get to talking about stuff like that. But I hope you enjoy your day. I hope that this wasn't so much of a downer, but, important life topics and things like this, I find it is important that you shouldn't run away from them, that you should face them head on, and you should talk about them, even if it's just to, strangers on the internet. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take it easy.